Hello, I welcome you all in the lecture series of memory. Today, we are going to talk about forgetting, extending our discussion we did in previous lecture. In previous lecture, we talked about forgetting, the relevance, importance of forgetting, classical experiment of Hermann Ebbinghaus, his proposal of saving method, and his contribution to the memory research forgetting curve. Further down the line, we also studied about the criticism of forgetting curve. Today, we are going to understand forgetting in little bit more detail with few examples. Forgetting motor skills. Do we forget motor skills or do we not forget motor skills? Why do we forget some motor skills and why we do not forget some motor skills? What we have learned from the empirical works of memory researchers that motor skills are resistant to forgetting. They are more robust in nature, unlike the semantic information, which requires lot and lot of rehearsal, and even then we may forget some information, the name and detail of our colleagues, friends whom we met 5 years, 10 years, 20 years back. But we never forget how we ride bicycle, even if we have ridden the bicycle 20 years back, or driving a motor car, or cooking a specific dish. So, learning to ride a bike, swim, skateboard in childhood can get us engaged in those activities again without much trouble, even after absence of years. Now, the absence of year can be seen as 5, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years or more. The skill, the motor skill has been classified into two types. These two classifications suggest and give us a hint. How do we become resistant to forgetting? So, first classification, closed loop classification, where we talk about the continuous skills. Each action cues the next action. What are you going to do next? When each action becomes a cue, then it becomes a circular in nature. Action 1 becomes cue for the action 2, action 2 becomes cue for action 3, action 3 becomes cue for action 4, similarly action 5, action 6. Action 6 becomes the cue for action 1, and formation of this circular cues, a closed loop, continuous loop, make your memory more and more resistant, make your memory undergo overlearning again and again and again and again. The moment you are performing action 1, all the other actions get activated that we are going to be called. Get ready. The other type of skill is the open loop skill. Each action is in response to different stimuli, handwriting and typing. It changes over a period of time in response to different nature of stimuli present. When you are typing, typing of letters will be different from typing of numbers. Handwriting will also vary. from stimuli to stimuli. This is open loop. But this motor skill become also resistant to change. With decade to decade also it changes due to physical interference also. Your handwriting may become bad once you develop Parkinson's. So you know how to write, but your physical disability may intervene in that case. So the closed loop skills are more resistant to forgetting compared to open loop skills. Here the rehearsal is not happening. We do not practice our handwriting as we used to do in our kindergarten, calligraphy. But once we have learned, no doubt we can use it, but still we need some few trials of practice. So among the two classification, which is more robust, which is more resistant, is the closed loop. Note, some skills are complex than the others. A study has been conducted where a group of people trained and given a training for CPR to save the life under life and death situation. 100 people were given this training. What we saw, that when these individuals didn't practice, their expertise dropped from 100% to 15% within a year. What does this indicate? It does not indicate first thing that it is closed loop, belongs to closed loop or open loop, but it indicates some motor skills are way complex than the others. The motor skill which is becoming resistant to forgetting is because the skill may not be that complex as the other skill like CPR. Some skills, some abilities are more complex than the others. Based on the nature of complexity and ambiguity of the task, the forgetting depends upon. So, if the task is simpler in nature, then the retained drop will not be that much. So, if the task is not the CPR, but measuring the fever, because it is very simple, with the thermometer, it just requires to read the mercury thermometer, what is the reading. Such tasks are more simpler. As a result, forgetting will be less. Forgetting events over time. Now, Warrington and Sanders use the headline from the newspaper that more than 30 years ago, and then they tested their participants' memory for this event. So, they invited a group of individuals and they collected the information from the newspaper 30 years ago, the time when these young middle-aged individuals were in school. These individuals were being tested about the information of the event. What we noticed is that forgetting is occurring. Moreover, younger participants had better memory for both the recent and the past older events. But the elderly participants, they had challenge. They had a challenge to remember the old information. They didn't have any problem in remembering the recent event. What does this mean? With HM case, we understood that the old information become independent of a structure. So once the information is becoming independent of a structure, then it doesn't depend on hippocampus. Because the memory may be dependent on different parts of the brain. And when the memory has become old and independent of a structure, then this means that when these elderly individuals has to recall the information from these regions, recall may be a challenge. Maybe their working memory capacity is not as normal as it used to be when they were young. But one thing is very clear with this Warrington's and Sanders experiment, that young individuals, they have better advantage over the elderlies. They are not only able to retrieve information from the recent past, but an old events also. Warrington did this test with 392 high school alumni for their ability to recognize the classmates and recall their names using a high school yearbook. Barrick reported that these high school students failed to recall the name of their friends. The rate of forgetting the content was relatively slow, but the specificity of information, that is recognizing the face or name, remained at 90% for at least 15 years. 15 years in past, they are able to retrieve the information. More years back, if you go back, that seems to be impaired. So the ability to recognize face remained at 90% for at least 15 years and it stayed high for over 30 years. It remained high, but not that high as 15 years. Lot of practice and overlearning. The process of studying more than is necessary. Rehearsal, overlearning is a practice. Every time you are doing a rehearsal, you are practicing it. Practice effect over memory is well established concept, an idea. The more you practice, the more overlearning you do, the more rehearsal you do, you are making memory resistant to forgetting. As a result, memory stays for long period of time. Memory decline is directly associated with aging rather than normal forgetting. So one thing is very clear, people are not able to recall or remember is not because of the normal forgetting, but because of the aging. In previous lectures, we have talked about the hierarchical network model. In that hierarchical network model, we discussed about the networking, the association, the depth of association, the widening of the association. In elderly, this association starts getting compromised as the time passes by. Barrick also suggested that memory store that is resistant to change is known as PERMA store. PERMA, permanent. Permanent storage, PERMA store. Long lasting. Barrick's finding made him recommend that forgetting and distortion should not be seen together, should not be considered similar. They are the separate processes. Now, when we talk about the forgetting over lifespan, how it is behaving, the role of forgetting. So, childhood amnesia, we know the deficiency in our ability to recall the event, early childhood event, when we were 5 months old, 11 months old, 1 year old, 2 year old, and maximum 3 year old, as per the few studies and documentation. It does not mean necessarily that we are not able to remember or recall or retrieve, the information does not exist there. That early memory is completely gone lost. It may be there, but in some different form, which we are not able to remember. If we will remember the nature of its encoding and storage, then we will retrieve it. Boo, boo, coo, coo kind of information, the sound, articulation, production of words, ma, ma, pa, pa. It may be there, but we are not able to retrieve it. Childhood amnesia is like a memory wall at around age of 3, which tries to inhibit, block us not to reach to that level of information. Now, after the age 3, then the autobiographical memory becomes richer over a period of time. Some autobiographical memory we forget, we do not remember. But most of the information we try to keep it steady and resistant. Forgetting events over the lifespan. Prospective studies. In such studies, researchers ask the children to recollect some memories, and then these memories are being tested, and these individuals are being tested on these memories after some period of time to understand how much information they can retrieve. Retrospective studies, where the direct comparison between children and adult is being made. Who remembers the information more and better? Using the same identical research method. What researchers have reported that in both children and adult, with respect to retrospective studies, by the way, that both children and adult will report on the earliest childhood memory, or both will generate memories in response to a cue word, to the shape of distribution of memories which can be graphed. So they have to generate a memory in response to the cue word. The causes of childhood amnesia. The first and the basic cause is the less linguistic ability, the mental lexicon. Lexicon is not there. Mental dictionary is getting started. People are trying to form the information, formulate the knowledge. These young individuals do not have memory in their system. So they lack linguistic ability. And when we talk about the linguistic ability, we have to talk about the lexical processes and non-lexical processes. They may be having high non-lexical processes, but the lexical processes still need to be developed in these individuals. One may look into a dual root cascade model. lack strategies for encoding the information, like using the cues at the time of learning is helpful. But is it helpful? Cues are helpful for us. Priming is helpful for us even. But with these young individuals, the understanding about the cue and using cue as a strategy for encoding and storage is challenging. Brain is still under development, allowing for processing and storing personal information. It hasn't been developed yet. As a result, these individuals cannot form a resistive memory. Their memory cannot be strong enough to be used in later part of their life. As a result, their memory become inhibited. As a result, we are not able to retrieve the information less than 3 years. Another reason for childhood amnesia is the theory of mind, which means children can understand that other people have mental states that are not shared with themselves. Some people can have different emotional reaction to the same event or understand the event differently. Theory of mind. So in young adults, the lack of theory of mind is there. As a result, the childhood amnesia arises. Now, reminiscence, recollection of information, recollection of memories, recollection bump, an increase in memory between the ages of 10 and 30. Between 10 and 30, we see a bump. Before dropping off again, so all reported memories as we age. After 30, it is increasing. After 10 to 20, decreasing, and 30, decreasing. Before the bump, again, before the rise, there is a decrease. For the participant over 35 years, there is a period of a stronger recall. Above 35 years, the recall seems to be higher than this, higher. It is on rise. Now, this reminiscence bump which is happening above 35 years in these individuals because of his or her consolidated experience and information till the age of 35. An individual is now utilizing that consolidated experience and consolidated knowledge. This consolidation of information usage is giving a bump in the stronger recall. Polanyi principle. This principle suggests more recall we do for the positive events than the negative events. But as I mentioned earlier, in some scenario, more recall is seen for the negative event than the positive event. Gluck and Black also found that only positive events stand out, leaving the negative events inactive, non-significant in nature. Sad memories tend to be recalled evenly across the lifespan. It is easy to recall the sad memories over the entire lifespan. So, reminiscence bump seen between the age of 10 and 30. Participants over 35 years of age has a strong recall. more recall is there for positive event and then the negative event. Positive event seems to stand out and sad memories tend to be recalled evenly across the lifespan. Now let us understand why this bump is there in the recollection of information. Three basic theory. The first theory, self-narrative hypothesis, which suggests that the person develops a sense of his or her identity in a narrative or a story form and has compiled the memories to support it. So when the compilation is there, repository is also already formed, memory bank is already being built, mental lexicon is ready, then recollection of these memory and the bump is easy to observe. So self-narrative hypothesis, information related to myself, related to my personal story. Life script hypothesis, the bump is due to forming a script about our lives instead of separate narratives. When we are talking about the bump due to forming a script, we are talking about the Gestalt principle, holistic approach. Whole is important than sum of its part. So life script hypothesis seems to be beneficial, seems to increase our repository, and this gives us the bump, remnants bump. The idea is tied to Erikson's psychosocial development theory, proposing that we make memories central about ourselves, that is self-defining. Any information, the moment you associate it with yourself, it becomes resistant, it becomes robust, and becomes prone to disruption. Not prone to disruption. It becomes strong enough. You cannot be impair it. It becomes resistant to disruption. The moment you attach it to yourself. The last theory talks about and suggests on remnants bump is Conway's self-memory system. These memories point to long-term personal concepts. Long-term personal concepts we hold about ourselves and unresolved conflicts. Conway is talking about the self-memory system. The moment you attach to yourself, the moment you attach to your personal belief system, to yourself, then the personal concept makes the memory more and more robust and resistive to change. So let us summarize what we studied in this lecture. Forgetting motor skills. Some skills we may forget, some skills we may not forget, because some skills are more complex than the other. The classification of motor skills, we studied about the closed skill, open skills. In closed skill, every action becomes a cue to the following action, and that is why closed skill is more resistant towards forgetting of events over a period of time. How are we forgetting? The information which is not personal to us, the information which is not self to us. Over a period of time, we try to remove the irrelevant information. The simple reason for such removal is to maintain the memory. It cannot be the storehouse for all types of memories, all types of information, because presence of all type of information, relevant and irrelevant, may create confusion. How the forgetting of event happening over lifespan, the childhood amnesia, the nature of childhood amnesia, why this barrier is there. Have we lost the information about our childhood memory, or is it the problem of retrieval? Why such inhibition is there? Does it have evolutionary benefit? What leads towards childhood amnesia? And finally, the remnants bump. Why is it happening? What is the importance of remnants bump? Why an individual feels this bump is there? Is it because of the repository which has increased, the lexicon which has increased, the capacity of working memory to hold information has increased, or is it because of the self? Because you have attached, associated the information to yourself. Let us stop here, and in next lecture we are going to continue talking about the forgetting. Thank you.